Hello and welcome to another edition of the Monday Night Wars. We are live with WCW Monday Night Nitro, July 29th, 1996. Disney MGM Studios again, Orlando, Florida. I'm Scott, and with me is Joseph. Joseph, how are you doing, my man?
I am good. We're a little behind the scenes stuff, guys. We're recording this on a different day because Scott is going to go on a nice little trip. So we want to make sure we had this one in. And so because of that, I completely forgot that we were recording today. And so I settled down for the day and poured myself a glass of whiskey. And then my wife went, "Aren't you guys recording today?" And I went, "Oh crap." So I'm good, man. I got my nice glass of whiskey. I'm
You
talking to my best friend. I'm on cloud
ooh,
nine right now.
ooh, you are all liquored up and ready to go. This might be an interesting podcast when you just let it all hang out by the
Yeah,
end.
when I just tell people, "You ever think of turning off the TV, sitting down with your kids, and hitting them?"
Oh my God, we got to cut that.
No, that's a great line. Such a great freaking episode.
It's a quote, so you can say it if it's
Yeah,
a quote.
yeah. I don't know if that works across the board.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
some quotes from 42 you can't be saying.
yeah. So I've been reading this book called Mein Kampf. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Kevin Nash has some stuff to say about that.
He does that. He does. Well, anyways, let's get into it, man, because we're in hour one with Tony and Larry and the WCW NASCAR. They want a race, man, or a bush race or something. I don't really know about NASCAR, but
I'm
it
kind of
won
going
a.
with you.
I don't know if they're different things, but it won a race because the car's typical. I looked up the car and it didn't really do all that well, but it
Yeah.
won something, so that's exciting.
Yeah, I think the way NASCAR works, and feel free to correct me on this. I know I'm not saying you because you don't really watch NASCAR either, but if you're a listener and you like NASCAR, feel free to correct us because we're ignorant as hell. I think the way it works is you have races. Some of those are actually championship races, but overall there's a season, and based off of your standings in those races, you accumulate points to be like the winner of the season or the champion of the season. I think that's how it works. So the Nitro car or the WCW car, whatever you want to call it, never really won major championships to your point earlier, but I believe it won a couple races here and there, if that makes sense.
There you go. I like Formula One because I'm a douchebag, but but I'm
Well, and
not. I'm not.
there's more multiple turns.
Yes, yeah. They turn right and left. It's amazing. It's a little different, so I don't really understand. But all power to you if you like NASCAR, man. No besmirching the NASCAR. I just don't know anything about it. After that, though, we get a segment from Saturday Night, and they Hall and Nash. These are bad dudes. They're two bad dudes. They call in. They Lex thinks he's got a phone call, and so he leaves. And then they jump the Stinger. These guys are bad. I'm sure Lex had great telephone voice, which we love. But these are some bad dudes, Joseph. You got any thoughts about the horror that occurred on Saturday night?
It's kind of difficult to explain because it is not only a pretty quick segment, but it really does kind of point to what the NWO really is going to be about. They haven't really done it so much yet. The one person they've attacked so far has been Big Bubba, like outside of, Bash at the Beach. And that was really just kind of like a cheeky thing more than anything because they pretend like, oh, he's gonna join us. Ah, nah, we're just joking. We would never have him on our team. It's kind of showing them being a little diabolical, right? They're like Sting is left alone. We don't know who actually called Lex Luger. Was it somebody from the NWO who was distracting him? We don't really know. It's a really cool, fun, simple segment that is kind of a precursor to a much bigger segment as the night goes on.
Yeah, this is their thing, right? Last week they raided the production booth, now tricked Lex into leaving Sting alone. This is kind of their game, right? This is leading up to Hog Wild and all of that. I think it works without having them in ring. I think it works. I think it's teasing us, it's showing us how bad they are. I like it. But you know what I especially like, Joseph?
What's that, Scott?
We got a Hacksaw Jim Duggan match.
We do.
We got a Hacksaw Jim Duggan match. It's a long one, too. It's 7 minutes and 30 seconds with Mike Enos. Honestly, not the best match. It's got Hacksaw in it, so how can I dislike it? Go ahead, Joseph. Tell me how you also loved it.
I'm glad you said it was not the best match because I also felt that way. I gave the match itself a C. During the match, commentary is speculating to whether or not Ric Flair has joined the NWO after he kind of mysteriously no-showed last week's Nitro. Eno starts a headbutt contest with Hacksaw, and Hacksaw just levels him, and it made me chuckle. Like we said earlier, it's not really a great match, but Hacksaw is so loved, no one cares. The crowd is clearly very behind him as he wins with the taped-up fist. Though the match wasn't so great, we have a very rare, slightly out of character, but fantastic promo from Hacksaw, who gets interviewed by Mean Gene, and he wants to talk to him about the NWO. Hacksaw obviously has known Hogan for many years. This works really well to kind of further the Hogan kind of being a piece of garbage thing. Hacksaw says, Hulk, what have you done? Not just to your friends and family, but to the fans. I've been with you to make a wish and the Special Olympics. Why turn your back on everything you used to love? And that used to love you. I don't understand. I've had you at my home. Gene, he's held my 2 little girls in his arms. The first word my oldest spoke is Hulkster. Now I gotta look her in the eye and tell her what kind of man you are. Hulkster, you're a great technical wrestler, but I don't want to wrestle you. I want to beat you up. Really fantastic work from Hacksaw. I will say it's a little bit debatable that he's a great technical wrestler, but that's splitting hairs. It's a very passionate, fiery promo from Hacksaw that is not the standard, ho and all of that. It's very, very down to earth, very deep, very like sincere. I mean, it really is like he's talking to, not just Hulk Hogan, but like Terry Bollea. It is a really good promo. So I gave the match a C, but I gave the promo an A.
As you should, because it's a fantastic promo. You're right. I really like this. As you know, it is kind of out of character. I feel like he's kind of shooting. But, I agree, the technical wrestler part, I kind of chuckled. But he has to say that, right? He's talking Hogan up about what a great guy he was and how could he possibly do this, what a great guy he was, which we know isn't true. What a great wrestler he is, which is debatable. But that's all to talk about how far he's fallen, right? And I thought this was a great promo from Hacksaw. I think it's one of the best we've seen because we've had some other guys kind of doing this about Hogan, how Hogan betrayed them, betrayed us, betrayed the fans, betrayed everybody. And I honestly thought this was the best one so far of that group. And it's not just because Hacksaw is on my Mount Rushmore of professional wrestling. I think he is. I really think he is. He's got to be, right? He's got to be.
I mean, you got a signed photo of him.
I
gotta
do.
be.
And you went after a man with cancer to get that for me, so I appreciate it.
I did. I'm sure I've told that story on
You have.
on this pod, but in case you've never listened before,
Wanting to defend yourself here.
no, I'm not.
Defend myself.
I'm not defending myself. This is actually horrible. Hacksaw, I did not know was dealing with cancer. I had no idea, and I had ordered for Scott's birthday a signed Hacksaw photo because I know how much he loves him. And it wasn't coming. Like I had ordered it for like months ago and it wasn't coming. And I was like stressing out about it because his birthday was getting closer and closer. And then finally I emailed and they were just like, yeah, we'll get it to you as soon as possible. Like, understandably, like, shut the hell up. And then I find out like the next day, like he just recovered from cancer. Like he, did the whole ring the bell thing. And I felt horrible to this day, Hack. So this was like a year ago. I love you. I'm so sorry I pestered you for that. There were clearly more important things going on. But that being said, it was my boy's birthday. So, get your shit together.
Man, I appreciate you. And also, Hacksaw, if you listen, probably a big fan of the pod, as most people are.
Yeah.
Feel free to come on. Happy to
Absolutely.
have you. Yeah, happy to have you guest host an episode with us. Or maybe just talk about that match that you had with Lord Steven Regal, which is one of the greatest matches of all time. We both agree. It's a fact.
Yes. I feel like if we had someone like Hacksaw on, the entire format of the show would change. We would not do our normal thing, or we would do like a bonus episode and just talk to him.
So there you go, Hacksaw. Bonus episode. You, me, Joseph. Beautiful thing.
Well, he may not want me there.
Yeah, I mean, after
I would willingly bow out. I would be like, that's fair.
Mm-hmm. He'd say I'd do it, but no Joseph. Like, damn, all right. Anyways, WCW Saturday Night 605, man. Ric Flair's gonna be there, supposedly. We'll see if he is. You know who he's facing, though? You know who he's facing?
Who's that?
Ay, chavo. Also, the Giant apparently is gonna be fighting Brian Knobbs for for the title, I guess.
For the title. All right.
I don't know. I can't remember if it's for the title, but I feel like it probably is. Anyways, Chris Benoit is also going up against Randy Savage, so that would be good, though. That
Yeah.
would be a good match.
Yeah.
That's worth watching. After that, though, we got another match, man. We got everybody in this one. We got Lex. We got Randy. We got Sting. And we got the Four Horsemen, minus Arn this time. Chris Benoit, Ric Flair, and Steve Mongo McMichaels. Michael, no S.
Yeah.
Whatever. and ends in another kind of bullshit way. Didn't we do this last week too, and it ended questionably? 13 minutes, 23 seconds, Joseph. Tell me more.
Well, okay, so first things first. So you guys might have noticed that he called Steve Mungo McMichaels. There was a long time when we were watching this together where Scott could not, for the love of him, remember Steve Mungo McMichael's name. So we just kept elongating it with like kind of similar names. So it was like Steve, Mongo, Ian, McDermott, Mulroney, McShane, McMichael. We would just kind of add to it, and every time it would get a little bit longer. So to
I
this
knew
day,
I knew there was a Mick. I just didn't know what
yeah,
followed that. So I was just
yeah.
adding mix.
So to this day, whenever he comes on TV, when I'm taking notes, I will hear my wife in the background going McDermott, McIan, McShane. Like she'll just keep going on the list because she's had to listen to me say it so many times. Anyways, you were right. This last week had a kind of confusing ending intentionally. This week it does too. However, this one is so much better. This segment itself has a lot going on. You said it was a 13-minute match. It's really like a 40-minute segment. It starts off as a brawl, and then it becomes a real wrestling match. And it's a really cool idea that it started off as brawl because these two sets of teams kind of hate each other. We know why. We've seen it. We've been seeing it for weeks. It's been getting to this boiling point, this almost crescendo of like we all know they're gonna have a match coming up at like the pay-per-view kind of a thing, that kind of level of like it has to reach that tipping point. And then something very interesting happens. It gets derailed when it's like at its hottest point, by the way, because the match was actually really fun. When Jimmy Hart runs to the ring and is screaming and pleading with everyone in the ring. And remember, Jimmy Hart's a member of the Dungeon of Doom. He's not a member of either of these groups. He is pleading with everybody in the ring, all his enemies, to stop wrestling and get to the back. It takes a while. I mean, he's really up there for a while on the ropes, trying to get them to stop. And I think it's finally Lex Luger who actually kind of goes, okay, like he realizes, and he's like, okay, I'm going to come back there. Let's see what's going on. And eventually they all go back there. Now, before Lex had ever noticed, Jimmy had told the cameraman to go back there. So there's been probably a minute or two while the cameraman's already made his way to the back. When he gets there, we find Hall and Nash with baseball bats, and they have beaten the hell out of Marcus Bagwell. Scotty Riggs comes out of like the trailer that they're standing next to, and he realizes what's going on. He goes check on him, and they attack him too. Then Rey Mysterio comes out of the trailer, and he jumps off the railing into Nash, who catches him and then just hurls him into the trailer head first. And when I say hurl, I mean like a complete javelin throw into the trailer. This dude is completely horizontal and he goes straight into it. It is a gnarly spot that luckily Ray was young enough to take that bump and not kill himself. Hall and Nash head to their limo and it starts to drive away. And as it's driving away, Mach launches himself onto the top of it and is trying to get in through the moonroof while it drives away. The cameraman walks through, and then we as the audience realize that Hall and Nash didn't just attack the three men that I've talked about. They've actually attacked every single person they can, including most notably Arn Anderson. The Horsemen and the Flarum are sitting there holding him in tears as Sting and Luger are checking in on the American males, and Eddie Guerrero is distraught over Rey Mysterio. As the ambulance comes to take them away for the various injuries the parties have had, the commentary is at a complete loss for words. Bischoff and Bobby Heenan come out after the commercial and join Tony Schiavone and Larry Zbyszko. Bobby Heenan says, "You know me, I've got a history of neck injuries and nerve damage. Can you guarantee my safety?" Eric says, "I'm sorry, I can't." And Bobby says, "You can't guarantee my safety. I have to walk away tonight." And Bischoff doesn't even fight him on it. He says, "You have to do what you have to do. Go ahead." However, it's just going to be Bischoff and commentary because we've gotten to hour number 2 at this point. And normally that's the team. So he kind of pleads with Zbyszko and Shivani to help him out in commentary in Heenan's absence. They agree. This segment goes on for from the start of the match to the end of this, it's about 40 minutes. And it's the majority of the night. It is 20 minutes after the match of raw emotion. It's perfect. It's fantastic. I think this might be the greatest NWO segment that ever happened, because you now get to see as the audience the gravity of this. The NWO isn't just going against one particular person. They're not just going after Mach or the title or Sting or Luger. They are going after WCW at its core. They are willing to beat up and dismantle every single person that they can, and no one can seemingly stop them. This is the most perfectly produced, perfectly executed segment in NWO history, in my opinion. I may change that if I see something better, but I can't think of anything. Maybe Finger Poke of Doom. We'll give that one a nod. I'm just joking. Please don't write letters. But it's so well done. And the fact that the commentary is shell shocked, and we'll see this as we get into the next match. The people who come out to do the next match really don't know how to continue the show, and they really sell that. It shows the severity of what's going on. It's perfect. It gets an A+ from me.
I said this was some bullshit, and I stand by it. You know why, Joseph?
Why is that, Scott?
Because they killed my boy Arn, man. They killed my boy Arn, and they killed Rey Mysterio and Marcus Alexander back. I mean, they might have really killed Rey Mysterio. They hurl him against the trailer. It's bad. And then they also killed Marcus Alexander Bagwell. I said bullshit because I was joking, because like it's bad. Like from a storyline perspective, this is crazy, right? They're killing everybody out here. But the point is, it's brought them all together, right? Arn and Bagwell are in the ambulance. They're putting the ambulance together, and Sting and Flair go with them. Are the factions coming together? Is WCW gonna unite against NWO just in time for Hog Wild? That's some storytelling, Joseph.
I don't think there is a single moment of this segment that you could change and make it better.
You're absolutely right. You are absolutely right. No, it's true though. It's true. It's a great segment. It's iconic. It really is. Like, people remember Rey Mysterio getting hurled like a lawn dart. People remember that.
Yeah.
Like, that's in my memory. I can see it when I close my eyes. That's how memorable that is. It's wild stuff, and we love it. This is storytelling. WCW has figured out how to tell stories long term. Watch out, WWF Raw. That's all Raw had going, was the ability to tell a story long term, and production value, but that's declined in recent weeks, as we've noted. As you said, though, we're in hour 2 now. We got Eric, we got Tony, and we got Larry. Bobby ain't showing up, because this shit scares him. He got a neck injury. He can't be around all of this tomfoolery. I like that. I like that angle, that Bobby just refuses to show up because he's that scared. It just drives home how serious this is, how real it is. Let's move on to our next match, though, because we got Rick and Scott Steiner, the Steiner brothers, versus High Voltage. 4 minutes, 46 seconds. We actually kind of like High Voltage, Joseph. What'd you make of the match, though?
We do actually kind of like High Voltage, and I actually kind of like this match. I gave this a B. There's not a whole lot to write home about. Steiners were obviously going to win this match, but on top of the commentary, being the way that they've been for the last, 10, 15 minutes, really just kind of distraught, the Steiners themselves are very clearly worried that the NWO are going to come back, and they keep, and High Voltage keeps looking kind of over their shoulders every few minutes to make sure the NWO isn't about to go attack the ring, which really sells what's been going on. Like I said, the match isn't amazing, but it does develop the story of the NWO so well, and I thoroughly enjoyed that.
I like myself some tag team action, man. I think High Voltage, people kind of knock the power plant guys, and High Voltage are power plant prospects, but so far, Prince Iakea in his debut last week, and High Voltage, I don't think they're terrible.
I agree. You might say, Scott, you're not wrong.
I love it when a plan comes together. After that, though, Ray was supposed to be in a match tonight, Joseph, but he dead now.
It's true.
So he was defending the cruiserweight title against Edward Eddie Guerrero. And that can't happen anymore because the man is dead. So now Eddie is going up against another cruiserweight favorite, Big Bubba Rogers.
Yeah, it's like the same person.
What a change of pace. 10 minutes, 47 seconds. Talk about this one.
Could you imagine if the roles were reversed and Big Bubba got hurled into the trailer like the exact same way?
That'd be
Talk of
impressive as hell.
that would be as the much smaller baby face, Eddie gets to really kind of play the resilient, David versus Goliath kind of role, and he excels here. There's not a whole lot to talk about. Eddie wins with the roll up, which again makes sense because Big Bubba is so much bigger than him, and he has to kind of be crafty and swift and light on his feet and all that. But it was a fun match. I gave this one a B.
Yeah, I thought it was a fine match. I think it shows Eddie's range, which is important. Isn't he facing Ric Flair for the U.S. title at Hog Wild? I think he is.
Well, they said that, but
Yeah.
WCW, they like to
That's
tell
true.
us one of our boys is getting a title shot and then not do it.
Very true. But in theory, at least it kind of shows that Eddie can wrestle anyone. He can wrestle big guys, he can wrestle little guys, he can wrestle everybody. Then though, we get something special. I think this is the first one, but I've been wrong before about debuts of things, Joseph. So correct me if I'm wrong. But I think this is the first black and white NWO promo.
Scott, you're not wrong.
Ooh, I got one right. Fantastic. I mean, these are all great. This one is just as good as all the others. Joseph, I bet you've got much to say about this, and I'm going to let you do it.
If you've seen these promos, you kind of know the structure of them. First off, we got to talk about something right at the top that all three men prove in this, which is really important to the characters of the NWO. It's important to the development of WCW and their long-term storytelling and the kind of furthering of this 83 weeks triumph that they're going to get into. All three men prove that late 90s and early 2000s sunglasses are the best sunglasses ever.
It's just a fact. I mean, when you're right, and you are absolutely right.
This whole segment got an A+ for me. Scott Hall is the continuous MVP of the NWO. And they talk basically about how they are an organization. It really is not just going to be the three of them. And that Hogan will take the Giants title. And also they kind of look like they can't be bothered to care about really anything. I mean, like, you look at the reason I say that the structure is like the same on all these is all three men really, really look like, we're just kind of here. We already know the outcome. We don't care about having to put ourselves over. We already know we're the best. We know we're going to win, right? You see Nash, he's relaxed. Hall is always relaxed. Hall is so goddamn cool. And Hogan, he doesn't do it in this one, but he will start doing it soon. Hogan will start doing soft Hogan voice, which we'll talk about when we get there, but it is by far the best Hogan voice. He doesn't do it in this one. He's still trying to figure out this new Hollywood Hulk Hogan kind of gimmick. But for it being their very first time doing a segment like this, it is so well done. Like I said, it gets an A+. We've mentioned iconic with the previous segment. I don't think this one's better than that, but it is another iconic segment. If you've seen these, you know exactly what we're talking about. The kind of black and white NWO promo. They'll even have some really fun, ridiculous ones where they sell merch, which is just so fun. You get to hear Kevin Nash go, "Buy it,
buy it."
So it's so great.
I was waiting.
But they're a lot of fun. This is just another great one. It gets an A+.
Yeah, it's funny. I put in my notes not soft voice Hogan yet, because that's something I noticed too. At some point, he just starts talking normally. He just talks like, I assume, how he normally speaks. And it's fantastic because it just shows how little they actually care about all of this. WCW and the guys in WCW don't mean anything to them. They're just here to cause trouble and they're having a good time. I also like that this is it's like a commercial, or like they're hijacking the feed. It just shows their power, right? Either they just got the money to just buy commercial time during WCW, or they have the power to hijack the feed. Either way, I think they're both great, and it just shows just what a tremendous threat they are to the organization.
Well, you're absolutely right. Like you mentioned the commercial time. They specifically say And this is the first time to do it. The following announcement has been paid for by the NWO. The whole point of that, if somehow you don't know this, and I mean, I know you do, but I would be surprised if people didn't know this. You pay for commercial time as a company, as someone who wants an ad on, whether it's a radio or on, streaming or on television, you have to pay for that time. So what they're saying essentially is, not only are they the most feared organization in wrestling because they have the three best wrestlers, according to them, but also they somehow have deep pockets and they could very easily pay for commercial time. So what the illusion here is that you're actually watching a commercial break, except for they paid for the time. So you're really stuck watching them, which is just so fucking good.
Good stuff, man. But is it as good as our next match? Where why are you laughing? This is no joke.
Okay,
This
go
is a
ahead.
this is a World Heavyweight Championship match. So you know it's got to be good.
You're absolutely right, Scott. I apologize.
Thank you. We've got the Giant going up against wait, Greg Valentine? Oh, and it's a minute and 42 seconds? Oh, okay. I guess before I hand it off to you, I should just mention that they talk about how Eric Bischoff has left the building. He's over at the hospital checking on the talent. This is serious stuff. But Joseph, tell me about this captivating 1 minute 42-second match.
So, like you said, this is the main event. It's one of those matches that's going to be a really quick match, and then we're going to go right into a promo. So I'm going to kind of talk about both. We knew Giant was going to lose this match. There's no way. And obviously, he wins the choke slam. The point of this really is that he didn't face Arn because that's who he was supposed to face, because Arn got hurt earlier. That's really the point of this match, right? We had to make it up somehow. We told you you're going to get the Giant, so you're getting the Giant, but instead of getting Arn, you're getting Greg Valentine, who we know isn't going to win, but we have to give the fans, what they paid for, although they really just paid for the Disney tickets. Once he wins, Giant goes and looks into the camera, the hard cam, before Mean Gene actually comes and talks to him and says, "I want you to listen real close, Hogan." And then he goes to Mean Gene, who's ready for an interview with him. And the Giant does a Hogan impression. Real talk here. Paul White actually does a superb Hogan impression. He really does. I don't have a Hogan impression. Paul White does. He's always had it. He does a great one here. And when he starts doing it, Mean Gene recognizes it and is like, "Oh my God, that sounds like." And honestly, it works really well, because then the Giant says, "Yeah, it does sound like that. I wanted to show America how easy it is to fall into that con trap." He says that Hogan could never be the big fish in WCW, and that's why he formed the New World Order with his new two piranhas. Giant has his best promo to date, mentioning that Hogan's a con man, how easy it is to sucker in America with, all the, say your prayers, eat your vitamins, all that stuff, and that he's going to prove what a con man he was by beating him. And there's really not any stumbles in this promo. Like, this is a promo you'd expect from Paul White in like 5 years, not Paul White right now, but he nails it. So I gave the whole segment, because of the promo, I gave a B. The match is really nothing to talk about, but this is a great finishing segment to close out the show.
Great. I agree.
But you're being sarcastic there. I was like, all right.
Well, I have a Hogan impression.
Oh, we got to hear it then. You said it on the pod, so it's got to happen.
Yeah. Well, okay. Is everybody ready for it? Are you ready? Joseph, are you sitting down? Because this is a good one.
I am sitting down because I don't want to fall over with how blown away I am.
All right. What are you going to do, brother, when Hogan comes for you?
Dude, he was in the room with me.
That's a running gag of ours, ladies and gentlemen, that I do terrible impressions because I just don't care. Joseph works really hard on an impression, and he will not do an impression unless he thinks he has a quality impression. So I just do voices, and I don't care.
I did Bender to one of my friends while he was over for poker night, and he goes, "My God, did you practice that in the shower?" And I actually had to sit afterwards and be like, "How'd this motherfucker know I practiced that in the shower?"
You were like, no, I just know.
No, I told him later on. I was like, "Bro, you nailed that."
But yes, you're right. The ending is just, it was a vehicle so Giant could talk again about how Hogan has betrayed everybody and that he lied to America and all that. Not as good as our boy Hacksaw, but I think still good, and it's driving the story, which is important. Look at all this long-term storytelling they're doing. They did a whole 2 hours of just storytelling. Oh, so good.
Mhm.
But you know what it's not as good as?
What's that, Scott?
I'm sure whatever WWF's cooked up for us this week. That's a joke, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, it's actually not I feel like this is actually not a bad week on Raw.
I was gonna say, and I'm gonna talk about this later on. This actually is a fire week. It's just going up against the quite possible best Nitro ever. Like, goddamn.
Yeah, man. Well, let's go to it because, again, we're still July 29th, 1996. We're back in the Key Arena, the iconic Key Arena that is now the Climate Pledge Arena. I'm never going to get over that. In Seattle, Washington, Monday Night Raw. You excited, Joseph? Are you excited?
I would be so excited to go to Seattle. Like, Pike's Place is fantastic. It's a really cool city. Awesome place. I love Seattle.
All right then, man. Well, let's take a mental voyage there for WWF Raw. We start by showing Farouk, because Farouk has made his appearance, his debut last week in his stupid gladiator uniform thing they have him doing for a while.
I forgot about that.
He ambushed Ahmed Johnson, and apparently he beat him up so bad that Ahmed ruptured a kidney. That's not really true. I mean, it is true that Ahmed ruptured a kidney. This really happens. He gets a kidney removed. But I don't think it was Farouk. I think Ahmed just had kidney problems. But that's how serious this is. We got Vince, we got Jerry, we got Raw, we got our first match. Psycho Sid versus Justin Hawk Bradshaw, Joseph. This one's like 45 seconds. What did you think of it?
I gave this a C plus. Yes, it's a very short match. Sid is returning, they say. They keep saying this commentary. They're like, oh, Sid, the returning Sid, the returning Sid. He's been on TV for fucking weeks now. I mean, I guess it's his first Raw match, maybe, but I mean, he's been on TV for weeks. He was at the pay per view, whatever. Anyways, he's back and he completely destroys Bradshaw. And what the hell did I write here? This is going to be the blooper. I have no idea. Did I have a stroke here? Oh my God. I can't believe this. This is hilarious. I wrote that he destroys Bradshaw with a comedian early, and Bradshaw hits him with more cowbell. I know what I was doing with the more cowbell joke, but the comedian bit, I think I was listening to a comedian and I meant to say choke slam and I just wrote comedian. God, that's embarrassing. I'm keeping that in. That's hilarious. Anyways, so yeah, he hits him with a choke slam. Then right after he loses, Bradshaw gets up with the cowbell, goes to attack him. Him and Zebekiah actually joins to do this. They go to beat up Sid, who then immediately topples both of them. I don't hate this. I do think it's entertaining, but it's not amazing in any sort of way. I gave it a C plus.
Joseph, I have a fever, and the only prescription is more cowbell. That was 10 out of 10, bro.
It's beautiful.
Thank you, man.
I'm surprised you didn't say, I carried this watch up my ass for over a year.
That was pretty good, man. Did you practice that in the shower?
No, that was when I learned that in high school when I would just be in my room by myself and pretend to be other people because I didn't want to be me.
Fuck, dude. Well, speaking of wanting to be other people, I gotta imagine that Farouk wants to be another person right now.
What a segue. What a segue.
Because we go backstage to Farouk, who is with Sonny. I guess Sonny's hired him. I don't know. I don't know how this happens. And it's just the worst costume. He's dressed like a gladiator, I wouldn't even say he's dressed like he's not even really dressed like a gladiator, not like a Roman gladiator. I don't know what he's supposed to be. I guess he's supposed to be a gladiator, but I don't understand the costume. It doesn't really look like a gladiator. I don't know what the hell it is. But he says he's a real modern day gladiator. And he's the champion of the 90s, not Ahmed. And then he also says that Ahmed ain't his brother, man. We're getting a little racial here. Okay. Okay. And then he starts talking about street fighting and how there's no rules in street fighting. I didn't realize, Joseph,
Yeah.
we are watching. I mean, how far ahead are we in our just fun watch of Raw? Months? Year?
We're in 97 for sure. So probably like 6 or 7 months.
And this rivalry is still going, and it's still about how Ahmed don't know how to street fight. When I heard this, I was like, they just my God, they did this for a year. They did this angle for a year. I guess the angle's kind of derailed because Ahmed has a real life medical condition and he's out. They were supposed to have a feud at SummerSlam for the Intercontinental title. That doesn't happen because Ahmed's out for so long. So I guess they just kind of restart the feud. But it's like, my God, just come up with something new. Like, it's crazy.
Are you
It's
trying to tell me that Vince McMahon doesn't know how to write for two brothers?
long-term storytelling to a fault here because he doesn't know when to just let a story drop.
Oh man. I have 'em on my notes because you mentioned the street thing. Farouk
Yeah, go ahead.
talks about the street this and the street that. But I know a few brothers and I've never seen them dress like this. So it's really odd that he's talking about this. Unless of course you count Denzel Washington in The Gladiator Part 2, which looks horrible.
Yeah, yeah.
It doesn't look good. Anyways, I actually think so. This misses the mark. We know that. I think we're in agreement on that. I gave this whole thing a D. I will say the one interesting thing about this is actually Sunny. I think she does a really excellent job here. A very, more grounded job, trying to put over Farouk and not just be all about herself in the promo. This isn't like a look at me, look how hot I am kind of thing. It isn't a WWF saying, look at her boobs kind of thing. Cause obviously that was probably a little bit more of what was going on with Sunny more than she was trying because they just couldn't stop sexualizing her. But also, I don't really think Farouk needs a manager, which I think kind of makes it like kind of confusing too. Like he's fine at promos. He's not like, he doesn't bat 1,000 for sure. We've heard some promos where we're like, all right, whatever. But he does some pretty good ones. You mentioned the streets and all that stuff and how they're still doing that. Where we're at in the watch now, it makes a lot more sense. Like it actually, like his promos make a lot more sense because it actually is racially driven and kind of the idea that Ahmed Johnson is really just kind of like an Uncle Tom. He's not a real, brother or African American or whatever. And like there's actually intent behind it. And it works then. It doesn't really work here. Unfortunately, Farouk's gonna have to stick with this for a few months before he kind of starts going into his Nation of Domination thing. And fun teaser on that. It ain't how you think it was. Scott got to live watching me realize that isn't how I thought it was either. And it's wow, it's a thing. Anyways, D for this segment.
So we're off to a great start.
I mean, I like
But
the
it does
first
get,
segment.
I mean, for the 45-second match?
Yeah, I mean, I still enjoyed it.
All right.
I like
Well,
Sid, bro. I'm enjoying Sid
I mean,
lately.
you are all in on the Sid train. It's wild, man. It's wild. It's wild to see. You know what else is wild to see?
Wild Man, maybe.
Wild man Mark Merrill. I'm the Segway king, bro. Vader versus Mark Merrow with Sable. This match goes a little bit longer, Joseph. It's more than 45 seconds. Tell me about it.
Well, like you said, Vader is in it, which means Jim Cornette is on commentary, which means we get to play America's favorite game show. Jim or Jerry, Jerry or Jim, which one could it be? This is the part of the program where I give Scott Kaufman two quotes, one from Jim Cornette and the other from Jerry the King Lawler, and he has to figure out which one is Jim and which one is Jerry. Scott, are you ready?
I was born ready for this.
All right, here's the first quote. This is after Vader, because I think you need some context. After Vader catches the speedy Mark Merrow, the quote is, "A dog can only get away with chasing cars for so long before one of them gets him." Here's the second quote. No real context in this one, except for it's still about Vader. "Wrestling Vader is sort of like being married to Larry King. You know it's going to be painful, but at least it's not going to last very long." Scott, which quote is Jim Cornette and which quote is Jerry the King Lawler?
Give me the first one again. I missed a little bit. Give me the first one again.
The first one is, "A dog can only get away with chasing cars for so long before one of them gets him."
I feel like both of these aren't bad.
I agree.
So this one's a little tougher, but I'm gonna say the second one is Jim Cornette because I feel like it has depth. It's a little bit more clever. And the first one is Jerry the King, but I could be wrong on this one.
Okay. So I want to clarify on this because I had to re-say one. You're saying the dog one is Jerry the King and the Larry the King one is Jim Cornette.
Correct.
Scott Kaufman, you are wrong. Wah, wah.
Oh! You know, I should have guessed because it was a personal attack on someone.
See, here's what you would have won because it's important to note. You would have won a lifetime supply of Fruitopia.
First of all, wow. And second of all, I've won 2 previous times and received nothing.
Ah, they're
But,
in the mail. It's taken a while, but they'll get there.
you know, I feel like this might be a scam.
But
The one time I lose, apparently there was a prize. I don't know if I believe this.
but here's the thing though. Because you lost, that means I won. And you know what I win, Scott?
What did you win?
I get a trip to visit you in Sacramento.
Wow, beautiful scenic Sacramento where it's currently 108 degrees.
Yeah, I'm not going tomorrow.
Okay, all right. I mean, you know, that's you, man. That's you. That's you.
That being said, Vader and Mero are actually a really fun pairing in this. I thoroughly enjoyed this match. We talked about how this night really isn't that bad. And we've kind of shit on the beginning of it. This match is a lot of fun. It's a really interesting match. Vader does eventually win when Mero jumps off the top rope and Vader catches him in a power slam, which is a really, really cool kind of bang bang move. And also, I think number one, Vader should have won. I know Mark Mero's been getting pushed lately, and I agree with that. But I think in this situation, it does further how Vader is someone who, even if you're super athletic, like, I don't know, Shawn Michaels, you're still not going to be able to beat him. I thought this was excellent storytelling. I thought it really, really worked well. It puts over Vader. And then Cornette wants Jose Lothario to close out the segment.
Was that a segue for me to jump in, Joseph?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I thought you were gonna keep going. I was letting
Well,
you roll, man.
I figured it cuts to commercial, so I'd let you take over after commercial.
Man, that's beautiful. When we return from commercial, Vince and Jim and Jose are in the ring, man. And Jim Cornette wants revenge for Jose Lothario pulling a knife on him at the pay-per-view. It happened. Jim said it did, even though there's video evidence that it did not happen. But I believe Jim Cornette. He is so far, everything he has said has come true. And so I think this is true.
You know what's funny about that, if I can interject real quick?
Yeah, go ahead, man.
On that pay-per-view, which you should really subscribe to our Patreon, $2 a month, so you can go listen to it. I wasn't super hot on that. You know, I've been hot on most of Jim Cornette's things, but I wasn't super hot on it. But you've turned me around, man, because every time you mention the Switchblade, it makes me chuckle and I get happy.
We got to redo that. We got to redo that whole podcast.
I'm not fucking touching that pay-per-view again.
Oh, I thought we got to give it a better score because of the knife incident.
Maybe
Well,
I'll
anyway.
record a 5-minute segment and throw it in there.
Anyways, just Cornette wants revenge, and the way he's going to get his revenge on the knife-wielding Jose Lothario is that he is going to have Vader beat Shawn Michaels for the WWF title at SummerSlam. But then Jim go too far. He calls Jose trash, and he says HBK trash too. And all hell breaks loose, Joseph. Tell me about it.
This is a phenomenal segment in a way that only Jim Cornette can pull off. You're right? He starts with obviously his normal things, talking about, Lothario, pulling the Switchblade, blah, blah, blah. But one of the big things he does is he puts over Jose Lothario's entire career. He mentions what an important wrestler he was and, what a great wrestler was and how much he actually respects him for that. But then what happened, Scott? What happened? Well, Jose Lothario was sitting there in his home in San Antonio, and he didn't really have a whole lot going on, but he was a San Antonio hero, and Shawn Michaels came and found him and trained under him and learned how to do the lucha style and all of this. And as Shawn Michaels' career grew, Jose Lothario's career started to fall apart, and he was sitting on the porch doing nothing and falling into obscurity until finally one day, Shawn Michaels calls him and says, "I need your help. I need you to train me again." And what happens? HBK goes and wins the title because he does that. So now Jose Lothario is somebody again. He's no longer a nobody. He's somebody again. But like you said, Cornette had news for him. He's going to take it all away. He's going to take it all away from Lothario. And here's how he's going to get even. He mentions, like you said, that Lothario is trash. And Vader's going to beat Shawn Michaels because Shawn Michaels was trained by Lothario, and that makes Shawn Michaels trash as well. Lothario then grabs Cornette, Lothario says he will beat up Cornette. His English isn't very great, so it's a little hard to hear. He turns around and Cornette goes to attack Lothario, who then punches Cornette. And we go backstage because Sean has been watching this whole thing, expecting Sean to come out and help. And Sean's actually been attacked by Mankind and is in the Mandible Claw. This whole thing gets an A from me. It's fantastic. The thing that I love about it the most is when Sean was going on his run to become champion, the boyhood dream they kept calling it, and they kept doing these segments week after week. They did a pretty good job of explaining Sean's drive, but they really never told us why Jose Lothario was so important, what this guy meant and what he really was. They tried to, but they really couldn't pull it off. And part of it is because Jose Lothario, not great speaking in English. It's difficult for him. So it's not like the easiest thing to pull off. And they never really got to make it work as much as they hoped for. We liked the segments, we did, but I could tell there was another gear they could never get to. Jim Cornette in one segment touched all those points, got to that extra gear, fueled the rivalry between him and Jose Lothario, as well as now Shawn Michaels and Vader, and made you completely invested in it and actually make me at least look forward to SummerSlam to see Shawn Michaels versus Vader. This is something that WWF as a whole has not been doing at all. I don't think Jim Cornette is as good as Paul Heyman, but he's pretty damn close here. Like there are some things he does that are so well done about executing the entire storyline. And Jim Cornette pulls that off with flying colors.
I only care about this shit because Jim Cornette told me to. It's the only reason. After that, though, we get a split screen between Aldo Montoya and Jerry the King Lawler. Apparently, Aldo is now being trained by Jake the Snake Roberts, and he defeated Jerry at Superstars. And Jerry says, because it's Jerry, that it's only because the intoxicating fumes coming off Jake the Snake impaired him. And he also talks about Aldo just being Jake's designated driver and that they're going to face off again and Jerry's going to beat him. And I don't like it, Joseph. He's got a drinking problem. We don't need
Yeah, it's all bad. It's all bad. I will say Aldo does say at one point, he says that Jake the Snake taught him two things. One, to believe in himself, and two, the DDT. And that's how he's going to beat Jerry. I thought Aldo was okay here. I mean, he's never really had a real character development in the time we've been watching. This is probably about as best as what's going to happen. But Jerry just kills this. It's really bad. But we luckily, it's very quick and we go right into a match. And I thought the match itself was okay. So why don't you go ahead and take that over?
Well, let's talk about it. Davey Boy Smith, the British Bulldog, with Henry O. Godwin. Go, Joseph, go. Go, Joseph, go, Joseph, go. Go, Joseph, go, Joseph, go.
We got to go quickly so you can go to dinner with your wife. Owen is mad while he's on commentary. He joins for commentary. He's mad about the slop bucket being so close to him. Doesn't like it. And says, keep it away from me. And he also says, keep it away from my slammy, which made me laugh. It's him and that slammy is so good. Owen's fantastic. Henry O'Godwin, as the match continues, is about to hit the slop drop on British Bulldog, and it looks like he's going to win when Owen leaves commentary and goes over, grabs the slop bucket and pours it out on the floor, making sure Henry O'Godwin noticed. And this distracts Henry O'Godwin. He's really upset because that's his thing. Why would you do that? And as he gets distracted, he turns around and Bulldog takes advantage of this and hits the running power slam for the win. I thought this was okay. Owen certainly shines on commentary, as he always does, but the match itself is kind of boring. It's not amazing. I've really come to appreciate British Bulldog, really don't care much about Henry O'Godwin, but I think this is not the biggest waste of TV time. It really isn't, but I think the Godwins kind of are. I think if it wasn't for Owen, I wouldn't have enjoyed this, but I enjoyed it enough because of him, so I gave it a C.
Yeah, it's fine. I like Davey Boy Smith. You know, I didn't realize I liked him as much as I did until we started watching this. I think he's good, man.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind of a shame he doesn't get as much success as I think he deserved. I just never feel like he's really a serious contender. He's kind of a mid-carder. I feel like he's always kind of treated like a mid-carder, and I feel like he could have been more.
Well, I think so. I know we've talked about this before, but they treated him kind of like their Swiss Army knife. You know, they could kind of put him in any scenario. So he could be going for the tag team titles, he could be going for the IC title, European Championship when we get there, or the WWF Championship. Like they could put him in any one of those things and seem like a viable option, which really does work. I think the reason they never put the strap on him, specifically the WWF Championship, which they did put those other titles on him, is because he's just so bad on the mic. He can't cut a promo. And that, like, people really, complain about certain wrestlers, like, he was so good. Why didn't they ever put the title on him? And it's like, bro, I'm sorry. If you're going to be the main guy, if you want to be the main guy, you have to be good at both. You have to be. You have to be charismatic and you have to be really good in the ring. And people will say, well, this person wasn't good in the ring or that person wasn't good in the ring. Yeah, but they were so charismatic, they made it work. But once they got the title, really quickly, people realized they had to pull the title off them for the same reason. And there have been some people who were not super charismatic to put the title on and realized for the same reason they had to pull it off really quickly because they couldn't keep a storyline going, even though they were great in the ring. It's a reality. It is an unfortunate reality, and it's one that plagued British Bulldog.
Man, with Jim Cornette at his side, he could do anything.
I agree. I actually do agree with that assessment.
After that, though, we got a hype video, really. We got a hype video of Mark Henry. He gonna be in the Olympics. He's weightlifting. The man can do I looked it up, almost like 1,000-pound squat, 900 and something pound squat. Dude could lift.
Yeah, he was
Dude
called the
could
world's
lift.
strongest man for a reason.
Yeah, and they're flirting with him joining. He hasn't joined yet, but he's going to. He gave Jerry he threw Jerry in the ring a couple of months ago. Very exciting stuff. He'll come and then they'll realize he doesn't really know how to wrestle and then he'll disappear again. But he's coming.
Yeah.
And they're hyping him up. And we like Sexual Chocolate Mark Henry, so that's exciting to see. Not as exciting, though, as our main event, because we got two titans of the industry. We got The Undertaker, and we got Stone Cold Steve Austin, the main event, Joseph. Tell me about this one.
This is really interesting because this will become one of the top main events for the company over the next, 4 or 5 years, and they don't even know it yet. Like, that's so cool when you see this. Austin has his black trunks, but he's got like this winged decal on them. They haven't quite completely figured out the Stone Cold look yet. He does have the vest, but again, it's kind of got that weird decal on it. It's not the skull, like we get, what we get used to and all that. This match is honestly really fun, though. I mean, it's really, really fun, and I'm not saying you have to go watch it. It's not really one of those like, oh, if you were to watch something, you got to watch this. But it's surprising how decent this episode of Raw has honestly been. This has, I think, been the best episode in months. And this match being your main event is great. Now, this might be a little bit biased because number one, obviously, we love both these wrestlers, but also we know what these wrestlers are going to become. At the time, Taker's probably a main eventer. They haven't done enough with Stone Cold to really solidify him as that yet, but I like the opportunity. I like that they're doing that finally. They've spent weeks, months after King of the Ring not doing anything with him. This still isn't really anything in the grand scheme of things, but I enjoy it. One funny bit is Taker goes to grab Austin by the head, and he is clearly used to wrestling long-haired wrestlers because the smooth surface of Austin's dome throws him off. Really, really funny. We get multiple shots of Mankind backstage in this, what they're calling a boiler room, kind of teasing the SummerSlam bout between these two men. Taker's about to hit the tombstone when Mankind shows up and Taker chases him backstage. Austin wins this match via countout, which, yes, is kind of a bullshit way to win, but it works for the storyline between Taker and Mankind. It also kind of continues this path of Austin kind of being an opportunist in his victories. He hasn't really won because he's so much better than everybody else. He's kind of won a lot of things because he just took the right opportunity, and that's cool. It's well before they ever do this with Rated R Superstar, Edge, all that stuff. After this happens, Taker comes back and tombstones Austin because he gonna get his pound of flesh. He gonna make sure that happens. Vin Man interviews Taker, who says it's time the Reaper enters the Serpent's lair, and at the Boiler Room Brawl, Mankind will rest in peace as we fade to black. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I gave this a B. I gave the show overall a B. As I said, this is by far the best Raw that we've seen from WWF in probably months by this point. But man, WCW had one of the best storytelling episodes of all time, and it's not even close, even though Raw put on a pretty good episode.
I believe last week I referred to Raw as dog shit. This week it's not. It's pretty good. But yeah, how do you compete with what we just saw on Nitro? And obviously, we are in the middle of the 83. Well, not in the middle. We're at the very beginning, but we're knee deep in the 83 weeks here. So obviously, Nitro wins. We can see why. Even though WWF Raw pretty good this week, you can't beat them murdering Rey Mysterio on live television. You can't beat it. Yeah, so it's clearly Nitro won the night. Although Raw was pretty good this week. This is not a bad one to watch. But that does it for us. We'll be back next week. As always, I'm Scott. With me is Joseph. Good night, everybody.
Bye, guys. Hey, everybody, it's Joseph. And guess what? Not only can you listen to us every Monday on Spotify, but you can find us on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and YouTube Podcasts as well. Just search for Monday Night Wars Podcast. If you want to reach out to us, you can find us on Twitter at MON Night Wars Pod, on Instagram at Monday Night Wars Podcast, or just email us at mnwpodcast@gmail.com. And finally, subscribe to our Patreon at Monday Night Wars Podcast. For $2 a month, you get every pay-per-view from WCW and WWF during this era, as well as additional content later on. Once again, thank you for listening. We'll see you here next time on the Monday Night Wars Podcast.